I thought the Pickett thing, if he makes the roster, how will be my answer.
Because just Stefanski loves him and has always loved him, and that's just the reality.
That and 6 practices with the ones, I don't know. I did feel so. One of my criticisms of the organization, especially with the quarterbacks this year, but in general, they get real sticky. They get real stubborn and stuck on things, and sometimes it's for good. But and there are things, like I think when it comes to trade values, I think they tend to stick to values outside the whole Deshaun thing. But most of their trades, I look and go, well, like Juwan Briggs, okay, that kind of makes sense for that caliber of player and what he's done. Mm-hmm. The Kenny Pickett thing is just wild. If he really had 4 practices, and by the way, they weren't good practices no matter what the team spins, and then he kind of never ends up seeing the field in the preseason. Maybe it's just the rookies are really that far ahead and they just don't feel comfortable with a rookie being back up week 1. But man, I don't get it.
Well, Albert also went down the road, and this, not that we asked him directly about like Adidi's reporting previously or anything like that, but it definitely contradicted what Adidi had to say about what people thought about Kenny Pickett around draft time. Adidi was like, multiple people called, not just the Browns, and trying to get Kenny Pickett's services. And so, but Albert was like, yeah, I don't know that he's got much of a trade market right now. And I think the injury did obviously hamper that. So maybe he just doesn't have a trade market at the moment. And they're just going to just keep him because they can't get rid of him anyway.
I mean, you could just cut him.
You could. No, you could.
Like, that would be, that.
They don't seem like they're quick to be like, we paid a 5th-round pick for something, so we're just going to go ahead and cut you. That's not really how they operate, but they definitely could.
Well, he's not going to be here next year.
I don't think he should be playing at all this year.
So it's interesting. Like, it's really not the biggest deal in the world, and that should be said multiple times over. But, like, okay, if the guy can't play this Friday, what's it? Like, the whole point, sorry, not this Friday, Saturday. Yeah. The whole point of him playing Saturday was maybe to build some tape for somebody else. If he can't do that, well, nothing's going to change his trade value. Well, maybe we just scratch him over here on the side of he ain't making the roster. If he is here, if he's the backup week 1, he is being gifted a roster spot. He has not played in any preseason games. He has not really been able to fully practice since 4 practices in to the preseason. I know we do this with quarterbacks a lot. It's just this was a guy who was, he's on his 3rd team in 3 seasons for a reason. It's just wild how it feels like we're just kind of, we're wiggling our way as much as we can. We're backing our way into just gifting Kenny Pickett a spot when he hasn't earned it. I don't think that sets a winning precedence in Cleveland, especially when we're going to be walking away from good football players in the D-line and probably the wide receiver.
Also, is this just Joe Flacco insurance, or is this just a belief that the rookies aren't ready? Like, if you look at it like Joe Flacco insurance, then you never actually use Kenny Pickett, but he's there for the first couple weeks in case Joe Flacco gets injured, and you don't think the rookies are there. So, like, I just want to know what their perception of this whole entire thing is. I maintain just Stefanski thinks that Pickett's the best quarterback on the roster.
Yeah, I just can't.
It's wild, I know, but like all he's ever done is express how much he loves Kenny Pickett and how great and how Matt Canada is the one that screwed him all up, and the Steelers' offense was the problem. And it's like, all right, well, it's got to the point where I was almost, even though I don't want to see Kenny Pickett play football, I was curious what Kevin could even do with it.
So if you get to the first couple weeks here, let's say you get through 6 weeks, you're 1-5. Let's just paint the darker picture of this, even though we know there's a chance they won't go 1-5.
Okay, and you're going beyond what I'm talking about. I was talking like legitimately a couple weeks, like 2 weeks.
Okay, yeah. Let's say you get through 6 weeks and Kenny Pickett's still on the roster, but it's time to go away from Joe. Is Kenny going to be? How's Kenny going to handle if you then go to Dillon Garbriel?
I think it's impossible.
Because I'm not going to handle well if you go to Kenny Pickett. Then.
I think it's impossible to go to Kenny Pickett in that spot, but I think that's why he's still on the roster.
It feels like they had a plan for Kenny, and then they drafted another quarterback, and that should have altered their plans for whoever didn't win the quarterback job, right?
Yeah, no, it really does feel like Kenny Pickett was set up to win the job, and Kenny Pickett was going to win this job, and then the injuries it was too much to overcome. I would have loved to have seen if Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco could have actually battled, and every single day people came back with the idea that Joe Flacco just looked that much better.
216-474-0092. So it seems like there's been this big push, people continuing to talk, all 4 quarterbacks. will likely make this roster in one form or fashion. And so if Kenny Pickett, who has not played in any of the 3 preseason games and has not been a significant participant in the quarterback battle since the 4th practice of camp, is he being gifted or is he being handed a roster spot? Because I do think that kind of stuff matters. Like, this is kind of one of those things where, like, when you're trying to build a competitive roster, there are absolutely guys where it's like, he had injury issues, but he's gifted a roster spot. Look what he's earned. Look what he's done. It's Kenny's first year in the offense. It's his first year in town. Mm-hmm. He's never substantiated being a first-round pick or a second-round talent, if that's what we call it, on the field, as it were.
Right, but he did play the backup role really nicely last year.
In that he survived, he lived.
I mean, in the one game he was basically called on to actually play. It was against Washington, and they ended up winning that game. Like his role in that was pretty crucial.
How does that transfer over though to the Browns locker room and the optics of, hey, we're trying to be competing here. We got everybody competing for jobs, but Kenny, your backup is gifted a spot.
The goal of a backup quarterback is that if we throw you in there, we know that you can win 50% of the games. Like, you're a good backup quarterback. If you're a starter, you got to win more than that. You got to win 65% of them. If you're Lamar, you win 75% of them. I think if you're a backup quarterback, you got to win about 1 out of every 2 games that you play. What I would think the Browns' thinking is here, and I disagree with it, but if I'm trying to give them some benefit of the doubt here, it'd be if Flacco goes down, and we still think the season's trending in a way where we got to get a bunch of wins, we have to, for job reasons, whatever else, if we throw Pickett in there, we believe he can win 50% of those games.
It's just interesting.
For the rookies, you don't know that right now.
To see their blatant disregard for the importance of the backup off and on over the last 5 years. Right? Nick Mullins being your backup 1 year.
Or trading the Pastronaut, for instance, when you're supposed to have... Maybe this is the lesson they're trying to learn from that, is last year when they traded the Pastronaut and they let it all ride on DTR, the moment that you had to go to DTR and somebody that wasn't named Deshaun... Yeah, and you weren't winning 50% of those games. He was not a capable, reliable backup.
So, I don't know. I'm just torn somewhere for this year of, like... To me, having a decent backup on a 5-win team is like having an elite closer on the Colorado Rockies. Like, it's just like, okay, yeah, that's great to have, but what does it really do for you? Because I'm imagining this scenario where Kenny gets this stopgap solution in between Joe Flacco and the rookies, and that's further going to make this quarterback plan look stupid, right?
I agree with that.
By the way,
it'll look like you didn't have a plan.
I see the logic in Joe's our veteran. Kenny is a reclamation project, and here are our 2 rookies. I do see the logic in that in terms of how they attacked it in the offseason, but now that we're getting to a point where it's like real time here, I don't know. I'm not comfortable winning games with Kenny Pickett if Joe Flacco can't do it or gets hurt. By the way, winning and losing games. I'm not comfortable spending time this year with the Kenny Pickett experience where maybe you could win a couple games and he plays poorly and you still keep playing him because of it. To me, this season is about Joe Flacco, or it's about those rookies. Your bridge thing of your bridge backup, basically, that tracks to some level. But once you get out of September, if Joe's healthy and those, like...
Listen, it's not what I would do. We need to make that abundantly clear. Like, if I'm taking responsibility for it.
You're trying to rationalize where the Browns are going to go with that, and I think that's fair.
I'm trying to get in their head, and all they've told us the entire time is they think these rookies are so far away. They're just nowhere close. If you really think they're so far away, if Joe Flacco goes down week 2, I could see a scenario where they're like, we have to have Kenny Pickett there because we don't trust Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Garbriel to be able to win us 50% of those games or come anywhere close to it.
I just think the message, again, the Browns are trying to send the message of competitiveness. And when you're going to be walking away from guys who've been there in camp the entire time. I mean, Luke Floria was one of the most standout players. Like, you could watch him on any practice make plays. He got a hamstring injury. He was waived with an injury designation. Now, he'll be likely back on the practice squad, but that's how you treat players who are battling for a roster spot in one degree or another and then can't compete because of an injury. So I don't care if it's fair to Kenny Pickett. Like, is it fair to any of the other people on this roster fighting to make a roster when a backup quarterback who's done nothing in Cleveland, who's done very little in the NFL, and you're keeping him around because you gave up a 5th-round pick from him, or, well, who knows about this Joe Flacco cat?
Right, but this is where we do talk about track record, and we talk about what he's done in the past, and even though we don't think it's anything impressive, you can at least see the 2 years that he started, and you can at least see what happened last year, and it's more of a record than at least what the 2 rookies have, and that would be the argument that Stefanski would make in his head.
Yeah, he's probably the best backup. That's not what this year's about.
No, but for Stefanski trying to get wins, it's what it might be about for him.
Yeah.
And again, this might just be for the idea that if Joe Flacco gets injured in week 2, we can't go to the rookies that early in their mind.
And listen, we can always, if week 6 they cut Kenny Pickett, I have a feeling that if he makes the 53-man roster, how this is going to go is he's going to be the backup, and they're going to try and hold on to him through the trade deadline, see if there's something out there, if Kenny's just the backup, a la what Atlanta's trying to do with Kirk Cousins. And I think that's just wasting a lot of time. Like, what conceivably could you get without Kenny Pickett stepping on the field and succeeding with you, at which point you're not trading him? What could you conceivably get between now and the trade deadline that will change things for you and Kenny Pickett? You can't. You really can't. And so this season isn't about having a good backup. That's what the Deshaun years were about. And you failed some of that time, by the way. This year is about, if you can't win with Joe, when do you turn the page to the rookies? I don't really see an intermediate space there, and I think if you do, I still think you're going to lose a lot of games. And losing games with Kenny Pickett, if you win games with Kenny Pickett, you win games. But you lose game with Kenny Pickett and take those moments away from the rookies. Mm-hmm. This is how this gets into cluster you-know-what central very, very quickly.
Well, and you're not really doing much of that fact-finding that they want to make this season about either.